40-year-old Kiara Hudson was in her car with her young daughter when a second vehicle smashed into her car. But this wasn't an innocent fender bender. In fact, it wasn't even an accident. The man driving the other car got out holding a shotgun. He fired that weapon and took Kiara's life in front of her daughter. For Keaira, this attack was something she feared, something she wanted so desperately to prevent from happening. Keaira knew her life was in danger. She was telling family members she was wearing a bulletproof vest because he was going to kill her. The he is a man named Adam Bennefield, Keaira's estranged husband, who had just been arrested for domestic violence in a brutal attack caught on camera. Tonight, we will take a look at that video and try to understand why a victim who knew her life was in jeopardy and was telling everyone about it could not be saved. I'm Vinny Politan. Thanks so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And in this next hour, we're going to talk about a story that I think will bring out a lot of emotions. The first would be obvious heartbreak and sadness that a mother of three lost her life in an extremely violent way. But as we peel it back and look at what happened here, I think what we're going to understand is that it should have been prevented. And as you think about what happened to this mom, it's going to turn to anger. And it's going to be anger at our system of justice and the way all of this was handled on many different levels. And I want to begin tonight talking about criminal justice reform. Okay, you hear that a lot in the news these days. And years ago, you heard sort of the opposite when there was a crime wave. But when we look at this case and we look at whose fault is it, right? Obviously, it all falls on the killer, right? Number one. But for our system of justice to come up with a way to protect someone, because ultimately that's our system is set up, yeah, to prosecute people who are caught doing something, but really it's set up to try to protect people. And that didn't happen here. And I think a lot of it has to do with the politicians who are the ones who make the laws, the ones who don't think two steps ahead, the ones who just kind of jump on whatever the latest trend is and say whatever they need to say and pass a law, whatever they think they need to pass, so they can get reelected and move on to another office, because that's who they are, not the brightest. So let's talk about criminal justice reform that everyone's talking about now. And the reason we're talking about it is because years ago, when the winds were blowing in a different direction and there was this crime wave across America, the politicians jumped in, passed all these laws that locked up a lot of people for things that weren't incredibly serious. And you had the warehousing of criminals for years and years and years. And that's why now we're talking about criminal justice reform, because people are saying, well, that shouldn't have happened the way it did. Why did it happen? Politicians overreacting and creating mandatory sentences. Mandatory, meaning the men and women with the robes, the ones who should be in charge of the courtrooms, had no discretion. Now, also these days, we're talking about bail reform. That's another part of this whole thing, right? And this is a problem because, again, we had too many people in jails. And people looked at the idea and the concept of what's going on with our bail system, that people were accused of crimes and some misdemeanors, but were poor and they have no money, so they could never make bail, and they would just be, again, warehoused in jails. Not prisons this time, but in jails. So that became a problem, so we came up with some sort of reform. But as always, when the politicians, the ones who make the laws, jump in, they always jump on the way the wind is blowing and overcorrect situations without thinking two steps ahead. And now looking at the big picture of our system of justice, which ultimately I believe should be to protect people the best we can. So where we are now with bail reform is that a lot of offenses in a lot of jurisdictions around this country, there is no bail. It's a get out of jail free card. You get arrested and then you're let out and you don't have to post a bond. Maybe you show up for your court date, maybe you don't, but you're in, you're out. And how many times when people are in and out, there's like no immediate deterrence to just not jump in and continue whatever conduct it was that got you in there in the first place. So you have people with long records who are just coming in and out like that because it's the overcorrection. So what's the solution to this? To me, it's pretty simple. It won't be perfect because nothing in our system ever is. Never ever is, but it'll be better, which is just let judges judge. In other words, give them discretion. I mean, they've passed laws now for certain offenses, you can't require bail. The judges can't. The judges are the ones who are handcuffed, not the criminals. They come in and they're out. In and they're out, depending upon what the alleged offense is. And that's the problem. Now, I'm about to show you a video, and I'm going to warn you, this is brutal to watch. But this is what I want you to know as you watch this video. The man responsible for this brutal beating that you're going to watch on video was one of those defendants who got no bail. He got arrested and released, caught and released. And this is a case where the crime is literally caught on the video I'm going to show you. The video itself is 7 minutes. I can't show you the whole thing. There's parts of this I can't show you. I'm going to show you about 45 seconds worth of it. Again, I warned you. But remember, as you watch what we can show you on broadcast television tonight, that the man who did this, yeah, he was arrested. Yeah, the prosecutor, everybody had the video. Video was even posted on social media. But he got out. Take a look. There you see him. There you see our victim. And unprovoked. I mean, this is a pummel. This is a man beating a woman. I have a hard time calling him a real man, though. This is the evidence. They had the evidence. It's not like a he said, she said. No. This is like, are you kidding me? This is not someone who perhaps we may want to hold on to for a little bit. It's unreal. It's hard to watch. I told you you're going to get angry. And as I said, there's 7 minutes of this. Can't show you the whole thing. I wouldn't want to show you the whole thing. But you understand. I mean, when we talk about domestic violence, it's one thing. When you see it, it's something else. And everybody was able to see this. Charged and let out. Now, the woman in that video is the one we're talking about tonight. Kiara Hudson, mother of 3 children. 3 children who don't have a mother. Because once this man was released, he's now suspected of being the one who murdered her. All right, let me bring in crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson, who's with us in studio here. I know you've been looking at all of this, trying to understand how this all transpired, how all this happened. So tell us about the time between that attack on video and the time that this mother of 3 is murdered.
Yeah, hey, Benny.
What takes place?
This case is just haunting, and it's really haunting a lot of people that are taking the time to watch that video. And it's because of the video and her cry for help and also the timeline of what leads to her murder. So let's begin with September 28th. Kiara Hudson posted a video, that video you saw, showing her husband brutally attacking her with the caption, "This is what this man does to me, but I'm always treated like I'm the abuser." A week later, on October 4th, her husband, Adam Bennefield, was arrested for domestic violence and released that same day. The next day, Keaira sends a picture of herself in that bulletproof vest to her family members. and she writes to them. She says, "He is going to kill me." Shortly after was that car crash. He comes out with a gun and he shoots her in front of her daughter. The same day, Buffalo police put out an alert calling Bennefield armed and dangerous. There's the poster right there. Then on the 10th of this month, they issued a warrant for his arrest. And finally today, Vinny, Buffalo police announced Adam Bennefield is in their custody.
Well, and think about that. He was on the run, someone who had no bail, on the run. But they tracked him down, thank goodness, but absolutely potentially dangerous. So let's get into why he was released. So, I mean, the video's there, the evidence is there. Why is Adam Bennefield released without bond?
And a laundry list of charges, which we're going to go over. So Bennefield was arrested on October 4th for beating his wife after she posted that video. But according to our affiliate, WKBW, he was arraigned for this, and it's long. 1 count third-degree assault and menacing, 2 counts of fourth-degree criminal mischief, 1 count each of second-degree unlawful imprisonment and harassment. But according to the DA's office, Bennefield was released on his own recognizance because the charges didn't qualify for bail. The local police chief addressed that at a news conference. Take a listen.
New York State is the last state that doesn't take into account the dangerousness of a defendant to the community when considering bail. Detectives were called in, they investigated, they also consulted with their supervisor on what the charges were to be, and you know, if a more serious charge would have been applicable, I'm sure that they would have charged it.
Okay, so their hands were tied, according to him. Our affiliate station there in Buffalo also spoke with Keaira's sister.
The courts are not doing anything. They're releasing people. So I just hope justice is served after this and nothing else ever happens like this again to no one.
Her family, that sister, I'm sure those kids, you know, hoping this tragedy will bring about bail reform in the state of New York. And the judge, Vinny, who released Bennefield on his own recognizance, former law enforcement.
Yeah, it's, again, handcuffed. These judges are handcuffed, but she knew.
A cry for help.
Absolutely. Matt Johnson, thanks so much, Court TV crime and justice correspondent. Let's bring in our next guest, joining us in Los Angeles, California, clinical and forensic neuropsychologist and associate professor at Pepperdine University, Dr. Judy Ho, with us. Dr. Judy, great to see you tonight. This is horrifying, what happened here. First concern, okay? Let's talk about the children who witnessed this, and now don't have their mom.
Vinny, it is so terrible, the tragedy for this family and for the children to have to witness this, and then certainly they're going to develop some trauma-related symptoms. It's really important that the children get into professional treatment as soon as possible because this is something that is just so unspeakable. They're going to need professional support as well as the support of their community and family members to help them to make sense of it and to move forward. Children at this age, especially when they lose a parent, that grief is just inexplicable, and they need professionals to teach them why they should still be able to trust some individuals in this world and how to make sense of one parent being the source of that pain and eventually the murder of the other parent. That's something that they're going to take with them as they grow up, but they have to be taught coping skills and ways to process this extraordinary information.
We're going to take our time through this hour to talk about a lot of different aspects of this. But while I have you here off the top, I'm trying to understand, because I don't, the rage, the violence, how, and again, I'm using the term man. He's a biological man, but he's not a real man. Where does that come from? Because I cover so many stories involving domestic violence, rare that I actually see it. And when I saw this, I couldn't process it. I couldn't understand where that comes from, how a man could do that to a woman. I don't understand that. A woman that he knows is a mother. Yeah. Where does that come from? How does that happen?
Vinny, I agree with you. That video was so hard to watch. And I think just behaviorally, without knowing more details about his backstory, this is somebody who has impulse control issues. They literally cannot control at all their impulses. We all have impulses. Sometimes we want to say mean things. Sometimes maybe we want to react in a certain way that might be negative, and then we hold back. We say, you know what, that's not the best thing to do. This does not look like a man behaviorally who has impulse control. So whatever impulse he's feeling, whether he's reacting to a thought, something that he's angry about, he's just going forward and not able to modulate his own behaviors at all. And there's also something else to consider. We do know that in many domestic violence incidents, alcohol and substances are a factor. So if he was intoxicated at the time of this incident that we're seeing on video, that could escalate the impulse control issues that he may already have at baseline, because we know that alcohol and substances are oftentimes a disinhibitor, and certain substances like stimulants especially could make somebody fly into a rage that they can't manage at all.
And the other part of this, and I know this from the history of unfortunately covering cases like this, oftentimes once law enforcement is involved and the court system is involved, all of a sudden that seems to escalate things for these monsters who are committing domestic violence. And it's almost as if when a victim goes to get help, they're in more danger.
It can be so tough because we don't want to tell victims to not get help. But you're absolutely right that when that happens, sometimes what we see in the domestic partnership is the person who is the aggressor will aggress upon that victim even more and say, how dare you report me to the police? How dare you go against me and behind my back? And that's why it's so important to have that safety plan in place before that report. If you call domestic violence hotlines, National Domestic Violence Hotline, they can give you a specific plan for how to essentially remove yourself and get to a safe place before making that report or immediately after making that report. And sometimes it takes planning and time. And unfortunately, in a case like this, there wasn't time to plan. They had to report it immediately, and that became a big issue and unfortunately led to her demise in some indirect fashion. But that can sometimes escalate the anger of the aggressor, which is why that planful idea of how do we actually remove ourselves and our children from this situation and then making the report leading to the arrest, it's just so complicated. And that's why we need that professional support and help to get out of domestic violence partnerships. And oftentimes I advise my patients to really lean on those support systems before they make their exit plan.
Absolutely. And that's where we're going to turn this conversation in our next segment, because we have a lot more to get to. But I wanted to have some basis of understanding the defendant, the aggressor, as you refer to him now, the accused murderer. Dr. Judy Ho is going to stay with us. Again, we're going to talk a lot more about this case, this story, and hopefully understand why it happened so it doesn't happen, right? That, to me, that's where I want to take this conversation. So we're going to do that, plus, coming up next hour. In Broward County, Florida, in the Parkland school shooter penalty phase trial, all the evidence is in and the arguments have been made, and now it's time for the jury to speak. Life or death for the mass murderer.
So I submit to you that the aggravating factors are proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
You can show him the things that he least deserves: compassion, grace, and mercy.
It was a holiday parade that quickly turned tragic.
Evil has arrived and it's shown what it can do.
Darrell Brooks is accused of killing 6 people when he drove his vehicle through a crowd of spectators.
In a surprising move, Brooks waived his right to an attorney and instead will be representing himself.
Our cameras will be inside the courtroom as a community searches for justice.
The Deadly Parade Crash Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings 9/8 Central. Only on Court TV. From Within.
My mom asked her, why are you putting that vest on? She said, because, Mom, he's going to kill me. You don't understand. And as soon as she went around the corner, he killed her.
It's unbelievable. There she is, Kiara Hudson, mother of 3, just 40 years old. She knew it. She was wearing a bulletproof, which is really a bullet-resistant vest. Mother of 3's got to walk around with a bullet-repellent vest because she knew what was going to happen. And she told everybody. She posted it on Facebook. She filed the complaint. The man responsible was arrested. Yet we still couldn't save her? We couldn't protect her? I don't understand this. I don't understand this. Still with us tonight, clinical and forensic neuropsychologist and associate professor at Pepperdine University, Dr. Judy Ho. Also joining me now in Dallas, Texas, victims advocate, Dr. Keaira Davenport King, and in New York, advocate for domestic violence victims and life coach, Vivace Max Victor. Great to have everyone here because we need your expertise. Dr. Keaira, let me ask you, like, the fear that she must have felt for herself and for her children, that she's putting on a bulletproof vest and we still can't protect her? We can't save her?
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. I just have to tell you, I just feel the enrage internally because I can only imagine how fearful she was, how she felt, because she had resorted to a bulletproof vest, as well as she knew this was coming. She knew his capabilities, and she knew what he had done to her that no one else knew, and she knew this day was coming. I could just imagine how she felt, and my heart is just broken right now for her children, for her family, and for all those that are involved in this whole situation on both sides. I'm just heartbroken.
And Vivace, this isn't someone who, and some victims, they're not public about it. They hide, they try to hide it. She was reaching out. She had some sort of an advocate that she was working with, and still unable to be protected. And I guess the fact is that somehow, some way, victims are the ones who have to change everything. They've got to turn their whole lives upside down, but she's a mother of 3.
Yes, absolutely, yes. This topic is very near and dear to me because I grew up in a household of domestic violence. And I remember my father would beat up my mother. They were together for 15 years. And he was merciless with her. He would punch her in the skull. He would kick her. He would choke her in front of us. And he would tell her that he was going to kill her right then and there. So I firsthand understand the terror, the fear, the learned self-helplessness, and the powerlessness that both the victim and the children feel in a situation like this. And you're correct, that video was extremely hard to watch. And actually, it activated my PTSD because I remember my father doing that to my mother. And I remember being so afraid that he was going to kill her because he would say that he would. So for Miss Hudson, she felt this way because he probably, my guess is, said he was going to do it. And I agree with Dr. Ho that these children who are witnessing these incredibly violent situations need a tremendous amount of support. My brothers and I never got support. And later on, and I'll speak for myself, in my adult life, I actually became suicidal. I had never processed my trauma. I'm here today to speak on behalf of any person who is watching, man, woman, or child. Please do everything that you can to get help. I know it's paradoxical because she tried to get help, and unfortunately, she was not helped. And my anger is escalated. I have prayers for, and you see I'm choked up. My prayers are for her children and for her loved ones. This is absolutely unacceptable, and it should not be happening in 2022 when a woman reaches out for help over and over again. And I want to commend her for having the courage to post this on Facebook, because not that there was Facebook when I was growing up, but my mother would have never had the courage to have done that. And a lot of women do not speak up for themselves or whoever the victim is because they're afraid of additional violence and their threats of violence. And also, in many cases, as your other panel experts will agree to, the perpetrator isolates the victim. And in isolating the victim becomes even more powerless. And it's extremely tragic and upsetting.
Dr. Judy Ho, how does a victim, I mean, what else could she have done? I don't know what else she could have done. It's like that piece of paper that, you know, to keep someone away becomes an accelerant, you know, not a shield. And she was very public about it. I mean, posting on Facebook saying, listen, this is what he does to me. I'm putting on a bulletproof vest. He's coming after me. What else does someone who is not just has to take care of themselves, but someone with 3 children?
I think Keaira did the best that she possibly could with this situation. And sometimes victims don't reach out because, as Vivace pointed out, there is that isolative aspect where the aggressor essentially makes it so much harder for the person to reach out for help, beats down on their self-esteem, makes them feel like they have no other options. And because this person has been isolated, they don't even feel comfortable talking to their friends or families, perhaps even been brainwashed to some degree that this is actually what love is. In Keaira's case, she actually did do everything that she could. She told other people, she told her family, she even made it public on social media, she wore a bulletproof vest. And I think, unfortunately, this is just one of those tragedies where this is the result of somebody who actually tried to do her best at reaching out and got through a lot of those barriers that we were just talking about and did that and just didn't get the help in time. I don't think that this should be a lesson to not reach out for help. You definitely should, and you should lean on your community as much as possible. Try to trust the professionals and reach out more than once like she did. Reach out to all of the different professionals. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Call a local therapist. Call your law enforcement. Unfortunately, when we get that piece of paper, when we get that stay away paper, it doesn't do anything in the moment if they just show up and start to do something to you, right? But it would help when people are actually afraid of law enforcement, afraid of the legal consequences. In this case, I'm not sure if Adam was in his right mind or if he just didn't care, right, about some of the consequences that would be down the line. But in some cases, it works because the individual does not want to have a rap sheet. So that is one case in which that could help. But going back to the children especially, the children really need to know and need to learn to heal from all of this. Like Dr. Keaira said, this is something that's very emotional, watching this video, thinking about how this could happen. Vivace is talking from her personal experience. And as an adult, if you don't get help for trauma, it does come back to haunt you. And it can express itself in PTSD, depression, anxiety, even alcohol and substance struggles to try to cope in the best way possible. And that's why that healing needs to start now for the children.
And I believe there's so much pain, there's so much shame and stigma attached, especially in many cultures. I come from an Iranian family. So in a Middle Eastern culture, you certainly don't talk about this in public, which is why I'm taking a stand to talk about this in public. And so there are cultural barriers, there are religious barriers for some victims who want to come forward, or they don't have the support of their family. They don't. My mother did not have the support of her family. In fact, you know, I asked my mom, why did she stay with my dad? And I think a lot of people go through this. And she said her father used to beat her mother. And so it was somewhat normalized. And so when she saw this the first time, she wasn't terrorized by it. She was a little bit immune to it. And it starts at a lower, maybe for some people, it's different for each individual, but it can start more gentle. And it can get more and more and more aggressive. So the person might say, hey, it was just a slap in the face. That's not a big deal. I'm not going to walk away from my marriage and my children because of this. But that slap in the face turns into that 7-minute video.
Big thank you to Dr. Judy Ho and to Vivace and Max Victor. Appreciate your insight, your compassion. Dr. Keaira Davenport King, you're going to stay with us. We're going to continue talking about this, but we're going to shift the focus just a little bit and talk about why he was out, the level of bail reform in New York, and why domestic violence isn't one of the columns where you should check off, yeah, you can require bail in that situation. So we'll talk about that when we return.
Care. I
and she took a picture last night and said, if this isn't a cry for help, I don't know what is.
40-year-old Kiara Hudson in this bulletproof vest just one day after her husband, Adam Bennefield, was released from police custody.
My mom asked her, why are you putting that vest on? She said, because, Mom, he's going to kill me. You don't understand. And as soon as she went around the corner, he killed her.
Bennefield turned himself into Cheektowaga police Tuesday, but a judge released him the same day. Hudson was murdered Wednesday morning.
The courts are not doing anything. They're releasing people. They keep releasing people.
Cheektowaga police say the 6 charges Bennefield faced did not qualify for bail under bail reform.
New York State is the last state that doesn't take into account the dangerousness of a defendant to the community when considering bail.
In 2020, the state legislature made tweaks to bail reform to help domestic violence victims.
Because sometimes if a person is, say, even if they're only held for 2 or 3 days, let's say, and then they post bail, that gives the victim that critical window of safety where they can make arrangements.
Now, a 2020 amendment to bail reform allows judges to set bail for first-degree unlawful imprisonment. In this case, Bennefield was charged with second-degree unlawful imprisonment. Chief Gold says he was charged with the highest charges he could face.
Detectives were called in, they investigated, they also consulted with their supervisor on what the charges were to be, and you know, if a more serious charge would have been applicable, I'm sure that they would have charged it.
But to Assembly Majority Leader Crystal People-Stokes, this is not a bail reform issue.
Bail reform is not the reason why that guy shot his wife or his girlfriend. It's not the reason why.
It's not the reason he got let go?
Not bail reform. It's the decision of the judge to let him go.
When setting bail, judges consider the defendant's charges and criminal history to assess if they are a flight risk. The Cheektowaga town judge who released Bennefield without bail is a former law enforcement officer.
This man escaped from prison back in 2000. To you as a law enforcement officer, is that a flight risk?
So I can't speak to the judge's actions, and the judge can't speak to that during an ongoing case either. So, there are going to be some questions that don't get answered.
And now we don't have any answers to why the man was let out of jail or anything.
Hudson's family says they hope her death leads to change with bail reform.
So I just hope justice is served after this and nothing else ever happens like this again to no one.
For the I-Team, Olivia Proya, 7 News.
Big thanks to our affiliate up there in Buffalo. You look at this and you say, like, how could that not qualify for bail? We showed you the horrific beating, and I don't want to have to show it to you again. I may. Let me bring in my guests. Still with us, victims advocate, Dr. Keaira Davenport-King, and joining me now in New York City, former senior homicide prosecutor in New York, Bernarda Villalona. Bernarda, I'm bringing you in because there's a legal aspect to all of this, a big legal aspect. But Dr. Keaira, I want to begin with you right now. We just heard everyone say, we heard the politicians say, it's not us, and then it's the judge. No, come on, we saw the video. How on earth could we see a video like that, someone getting beaten? We know she's in an incredibly dangerous position. How can we all kind of say, no bail here? What are your thoughts about that, Dr. Keaira?
One is, I believe that the criminal justice system failed both of the individuals. More specifically, I believe it failed her because she cried out. The bail reform is not justifiable when you have individuals like Adam, who have a long history that goes back 23 years. He was in the same situation at 22 when he was arrested for beating his girlfriend at that time, and they arrested him. He said on TV that I do this because I have an issue. And at that moment, for 22 years later, he murdered his wife. The bail reform to me is not justifiable. I believe that she, in her own right, she tried to take matters in her hand. She tried to do what she can to protect her and her kids. And I just, when I look at this holistically, the criminal reform system failed, And I don't that justifiable to the bail reform. That's not justifiable in this case. I believe there's victims all around in this situation, including those poor children who don't have neither their mother or their father.
Bernarda, is it because, and we heard the chief say that New York does not take into account, like other states do, the potential danger to the community when assessing whether or not to give bail. You know, you look at the charges in this case. It was a second-degree unlawful imprisonment. I mean, third-degree assault. It was a brutal beating. It was a brutal beating.
Cindy, the criminal justice system here in New York is broken. I'm going to focus on New York just for tonight.
Absolutely.
In terms of how did we even get here? The problem is that we have lawmakers as well as people making decisions that are not knowledgeable on the subject matter. You bring people to the table that have pure tunnel vision in the sense of they're focusing on their own agenda. When dealing with the criminal justice system, let's bring to the table law enforcement, prosecutors, the public defenders, bring in social workers, bring in people from education, bring people with drug treatment background. You bring all these people as well as probation and supervision to the table as well as judges. All of these people at the table play a role in the criminal justice system. If everyone puts their input in and tells each other what are the fears and things that the other person may not be talking about or thinking about, maybe we can get a reform system in place that, one, protects the public, number two, guarantees that the person returns back to court to face their charges, and three, that builds some kind of trust in our criminal justice system. This whole thing is a mess because everybody wants to play politics. If we put back the dangerousness standard, which I think we should, but the problem is you got to fix certain things. You can't have civil court judges at arraignment making decisions on criminal court cases when they have no idea what the criminal system, what is involved in the criminal system, or how to analyze a case to determine what the bail should be or the strength of a certain case. That's one of the main problems that you have here. We understand bail is there to just ensure that the person return to court. However, that dangerousness factor is a huge deterrent to people from committing crime, also for the victims, making them feel protected. Three is like, maybe I will call 911 because maybe you'll actually arrest him and put him in custody until the time of trial, or actually set some kind of parameters. So maybe that will deter him from trying to call me or trying to reach out.
Bernarda Villalona, Dr. Keaira Davenport-King staying with us. We've got a lot more to cover on this story, plus coming up next hour. In Waukesha, Wisconsin, the accused Christmas parade killer in court representing himself for the murder of 6 people, including an 8-year-old boy. More emotional testimony in court today, plus a tornado warning.
My sole focus was at my daughter at that point.
I did veer into the crowd, just right in front of me where my son got hit.
30 years ago, a person dressed as a clown, holding flowers and balloons, rang the doorbell at Marlene Warren's home. But when Marlene answered, the clown shot her to death.
Advanced DNA testing led authorities to Sheila Keene Warren. The defendant ended up marrying the victim's husband.
It's like a Lifetime movie plot.
This is going to be a riveting case.
The Killer Clown Murder Trial. Live coverage starting October 21st on Court TV.
This man escaped from prison back in 2000. To you as a law enforcement officer, is that a flight risk?
So I can't speak to, the judge's actions, and the judge can't speak to that during an ongoing case either. So, there are going to be some questions that don't get answered.
And I don't think it's the chief's fault, but wow. I want to put up on the screen, and I want to put up on the screen, we got this is from 2018, from the Center for Court Innovation, Bail Reform and Domestic Violence. In 2018, 128 domestic violence cases were arraigned in the New York City criminal courts. 85% were charged with a misdemeanor. 7% with a nonviolent felony. How could domestic violence be nonviolent, by the way? I don't understand that. And 8% with a violent felony. The most common charges were assault and criminal contempt. Among these domestic violence cases, 83% of the misdemeanors, 34% of the nonviolent felonies, and 41% of the violent felonies were released at arraignment, generally with a condition to obey the order of protection, right? That's that piece of paper that often acts as an accelerant in these cases. Still with us, Dr. Keaira Davenport-King and Bernarda Villalona. Dr. Keaira is a victim's advocate. Bernarda, a former senior homicide prosecutor in New York. What in this case, Bernarda, what was it? Was the judge has no discretion? The judge has to let someone out if the charges are like they were in this case? 1 count of third-degree assault and menacing, 2 counts of fourth-degree criminal mischief, 1 count each of second-degree unlawful imprisonment and harassment.
So the problem is, beneath all of those charges that you just mentioned, at least for the assault in the third degree, even though is that you cause physical injury to another person, and despite criminal mischief, 2 counts of criminal mischief, each of those counts, none of them are eligible for bail according to the new bail reform statute. That's what it is. Look, I got the chart right here. You look up the charge. Is it bail eligible? Is it remand eligible? What kind of non-monetary conditions are available? Or do they have to be released on their own recognizance? So unfortunately for the judge in this case, when they look up the different charges that he was charged with, the law doesn't allow him to set bail conditions. However, there are some caveats. But the thing is, do you have a judge that knows all of these caveats? For example, was the person out on probation? Was the person out on parole? If they were out on parole or probation doing a commitment of this offense, then it is possible that you can set some kind of bail or some kind of supervision in the case. But there's just so many variables, Benny. I really get upset about this because there's just so much going on. You have one extreme where you have Khalid Browder, who's in jail for many years and ends up ultimately committing suicide, and they're blaming the jail system and the bail reform on that, when in reality, everybody failed him, prosecutor, judge, and his own defense attorney.
I feel, Dr. Keaira Davenport-King, I feel like our system needs to be set up to not only prosecute people for committing horrific crimes, right? But like preventing some crimes that we could prevent so there aren't victims, so there aren't 3 children who lost their mother. So there isn't someone who has to walk around with a bulletproof vest because she knows that the man is going to kill her. And I've got to, our system has to have that approach as well, doesn't it?
I agree. I agree that the system, it needs to be a system in place where when these women, men and children are crying out, that the system is available to assist them. When I watched the videos, when I seen her course of action leading up to this day, October 5th, she was trying to do everything that she could possibly do, including a restraining order from the court that failed to protect her, because on October 4th, he got out on a case that involved physical, and I understand the ramifications and the thing around the laws there in New York. However, there was nothing in place to protect the victim. The victim has been hurt. She was trying to find a way. She obviously didn't have the means, and I don't want to make an assumption that she could not go into hiding, because there are domestic violence shelters that can take, I know here in Texas, they can help put you and place you into those areas. I do understand that she was working with advocates, but from the time frame of him going to jail, getting out of jail because of the bail reform, they couldn't allow the charges to stick, but he was able to get out. And then the very next day, which angers me, he shot her in front of not only her children in a public place, in a very open atmosphere, because he was able to get out and he was able to walk away. And yes, to answer your question, I agree that there needs to be in place to help the victim.
Dr. Keaira Davenport-King, Bernarda Villalona, thank you so much. Your perspective, your experience, input, incredibly valuable tonight. We appreciate it.